The sound echoed through the cabin like a thunderclap. Smack! Every passenger on Flight 447 from Dallas to New York froze. Some gasped. Others pulled out their phones. A woman in seat 12C covered her mouth in shock. But nobody moved. Nobody said a word. Sarah Lewis stood there, her hands still raised, her face bright red with anger. Her chest rose and fell rapidly as she breathed hard, staring down at the young man sitting in first class. Seat 2A. Andrew Phillips touched his cheek slowly, his dark eyes wide with disbelief. The red mark on his face was already beginning to show. He looked up at Sarah, stunned, unable to speak. "You think you can talk to me like that?" Sarah's voice shook with rage. "You think because you're sitting in first class, you can treat me like garbage?" Andrew opened his mouth, but before he could say anything, Sarah pointed her finger at him. "I don't care who you are or how much money you have. You don't get to disrespect me." The entire first-class cabin watched in silence. The other flight attendants stood frozen near the galley, their eyes moving between Sarah and Andrew, unsure of what to do. Andrew slowly reached into his jacket pocket. His hand was trembling slightly. He pulled out his phone, his jaw tight, his eyes never leaving Sarah's face. "I need to make a call," he said quietly, his voice steady despite the obvious anger simmering beneath. Sarah laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "A call? Go ahead. Call whoever you want. Maybe your lawyer? Your daddy? It won't change anything. You were rude, and I won't stand for it." Andrew didn't respond. He simply pressed a number and lifted the phone to his ear. Sarah crossed her arms, a satisfied smirk on her face. Around them, passengers whispered each other, some recording the scene on their phones, others shaking their heads in disapproval, though it wasn't entirely clear who they disapproved of more. The plane had just started moving toward the runway. Through the windows, passengers could see the ground crew waving them forward, the engines humming with increasing power. They were maybe 2 minutes from takeoff. Andrew spoke into his phone, his voice low and calm. "Dad, it's me. We have a situation on Flight 447 out of Dallas." He paused, listening. "Yes, that flight. I need you to make a call. Now." He hung up without saying goodbye. Sarah rolled her eyes. Calling Daddy to complain? How typical. But something in Andrew's expression made her confidence waver just slightly. There was no anger there anymore, no frustration, just a strange, calm certainty that made Sarah's stomach twist with the first flutter of doubt. The plane continued rolling forward, picking up speed as it approached the runway. The captain's voice came over the intercom, cheerful and routine. "Flight attendants, prepare for takeoff." Sarah turned away from Andrew, trying to compose herself. Her hands were still shaking. She had never hit a passenger before, never even come close. But this man, this entitled, arrogant young man, had pushed her too far. Or had he? The moment replayed in her mind. What exactly had he said? She had been so angry, so overwhelmed by everything happening in her life. Her mother's medical bills, her landlord threatening eviction, the manager who had yelled at her that morning for being 3 minutes late. When Andrew had made that comment, what was it again? Something inside her had just snapped. She walked toward the galley, trying to steady her breathing. The other flight attendants looked at her with wide eyes but said nothing. Maria, her closest friend on the crew, reached out and touched her arm gently. "Sarah, what were you thinking?" Maria whispered urgently. "You could lose your job. You could be arrested." Sarah pulled her arm away. He deserved it. But even as she said it, the doubt crept deeper. Did he? What had he actually said? The plane turned onto the runway. The engines roared louder, preparing for the surge of power that would lift them into the sky. Sarah strapped herself into the jump seat, her heart pounding. Suddenly, the engines cut back. The plane slowed. Sarah looked up, confused. They were on the runway. They should be accelerating, not slowing down. The captain's voice came over the intercom again, but this time his cheerful tone was gone. He sounded confused, concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a slight delay. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. We'll have more information shortly." The plane came to a complete stop, right there on the runway. Sarah's stomach dropped. Through the small window by her jump seat, she could see something unusual happening. Ground crew vehicles were approaching the plane from multiple directions. Not just one or two, at least 5 or 6, moving fast. Maria leaned over, her face pale. "Sarah, what's going on?" Sarah shook her head, unable to speak. A cold feeling spread through her chest. Her eyes drifted back to first class, to seat 2A, where Andrew Phillips sat perfectly still, his phone resting in his lap, watching her with those calm, knowing eyes. What had she done? Who had he called? And why had the plane stopped? The plane sat motionless on a runway, its engines idling with a low, ominous hum. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs as she watched through the small window. More vehicles were arriving now. Black SUVs with tinted windows, airport security cars with flashing lights, and what looked like official airport authority vehicles. This wasn't normal. Nothing about this was normal. "Ladies and gentlemen," the captain's voice crackled over the intercom again, and this time Sarah could hear the confusion mixed with something else, concern, maybe even worry. "We've been instructed to return to the gate. We apologize for the inconvenience. Please remain calm and stay in your seats." A wave of confused murmurs rippled through the cabin. Passengers shifted in their seats, craning their necks to see what was happening outside. Some were already complaining loudly about missed connections and delayed meetings. But Sarah barely heard any of it. Her eyes were locked on Andrew Phillips. He hadn't moved, hadn't even unbuckled his seatbelt. He simply sat there in seat 2A, looking out the window with that same calm expression, like he had expected this, like he had known exactly what would happen when he made that phone call. Maria grabbed Sarah's arm, her fingers digging in hard. "Sarah, this is because of what you did. This has to be because of you. Oh my God, what did you do?" I just... Sarah's voice caught in her throat. "He was rude to me, Maria. He was disrespectful. I lost my temper, but I didn't think. You hit a passenger." Maria hissed, keeping her voice low so the others wouldn't hear. "You assaulted someone on an airplane. Do you know how serious that is? This isn't just about losing your job, Sarah. You could go to jail." The plane began moving again, but this time backward, being pushed away from the runway by a tug vehicle. Sarah felt sick. Her hands were clammy, her mouth dry. Everything was spiraling out of control, so fast. She tried to remember exactly what happened 15 minutes ago, before everything went wrong. Andrew Phillips had boarded early, as first-class passengers always did. Sarah had been standing near the entrance, greeting passengers with her standard smile, though inside she felt like she was barely holding herself together. The morning had been a disaster. Her mother had called from the hospital, crying about the bills they couldn't pay. Her landlord had sent another threatening text about the rent that was 3 weeks overdue, and her manager, Mr. Peterson, had screamed at her in front of everyone for being late. Even though it was only 3 minutes and the traffic had been terrible, she was exhausted, emotionally drained, running on empty. Andrew had walked past her without acknowledging her greeting. That was fine. Lots of passengers did that. But then he had stopped at his seat and called her over. "Excuse me," he had said, his voice polite but firm. "There's something on my seat." Sarah had hurried over, expecting to find a piece of trash or maybe a stain. But the seat looked perfectly clean to her. "I'm sorry, sir, but I don't see anything," she had said, trying to keep her voice pleasant despite her frazzled nerves. Andrew had pointed. "Right there, that spot." Sarah had leaned in closer, squinting. There was maybe the tiniest mark, so small she could barely see it. Probably just a shadow. "I'll get you some cleaning solution right away, sir," she had offered. "I don't want cleaning solution," Andrew had said, his tone becoming cooler. "I want a different seat." Sarah had felt her frustration rising, but pushed it down. "Sir, this is a full flight. All the first-class seats are occupied." "Then upgrade my seat." "Sir, this is already first class. There's nowhere to upgrade to." Andrew had looked at her then, his expression unreadable. "So you're telling me I paid for first class, and I have to sit in a dirty seat?" Something about the way he said dirty had set her off. Or maybe it was everything else, The hospital bills, the eviction notice, the screaming manager, the sleepless nights, the constant worry that was crushing her from all sides. Whatever it was, in that moment, something inside Sarah broke. "The seat is not dirty," she had snapped, her voice louder than she intended. "You're being ridiculous." Andrew's eyebrows had risen. "Excuse me? You heard me. There is nothing wrong with this seat. You're just being difficult because you think you're special, because you're sitting in first class, and you think that means you can push people around." "I never said I was special," Andrew had replied calmly. "I simply asked for a clean seat. Your reaction is completely unprofessional." Unprofessional? Sarah had felt the anger flooding through her like fire. You want to see unprofessional? And that's when she had done it. That's when her hand had flown up, seemingly of its own accord, and struck him across the face. Smack! The memory made her feel sick now. What had she been thinking? She hadn't been thinking at all. She had just reacted. The plane jerked to a stop at the gate. Through the window, Sarah could see a crowd of people waiting on the jetway. Airport security, police officers, men in suits she didn't recognize. The captain emerged from the cockpit, his face grave. He walked straight to first class, straight to Andrew Phillips. "Mr. Phillips," the captain said, his voice respectful in a way that made Sarah's blood run cold. "I apologize profusely for this incident. Is there anything we can do for you?" "Mr. Phillips." The captain knew his name. How did the captain know his name? Andrew shook his head slightly. "I'm fine, Captain. Thank you for your concern. We have security standing by," the captain continued. "They're ready to handle the situation however you'd like." Andrew's eyes finally moved from the window and found Sarah across the cabin. Their eyes met, and Sarah felt her breath catch. There was no anger in his gaze, no satisfaction, just something that looked almost like sadness. "I'd like to speak with her first," Andrew said quietly. "Alone?" The captain looked surprised. "Sir, I don't think that's—" "Alone," Andrew repeated, his voice still quiet but carrying an unmistakable authority. The captain hesitated, then nodded. He turned to Sarah. "Ms. Lewis, Mr. Phillips would like a word with you." Sarah's legs felt like rubber as she stood. Maria tried to grab her arm again, but Sarah pulled away. She walked down the aisle on shaking legs, past the staring passengers, past the other flight attendants who looked at her with mixtures of shock and pity. She stopped in front of seat 2A. Andrew looked up at her, and for the first time, she really saw him. He was young, maybe 25 or 26, well-dressed but not flashy. There was intelligence in his eyes, and something else, something that made him seem older than his years. "Sit down," he said, gesturing to the empty seat beside him. Sarah sat, her whole body trembling. "Do you know who I am?" Andrew asked softly. Sarah shook her head. Andrew pulled out his wallet and handed her a business card. Sarah's hands shook as she read it. "Andrew Phillips, Vice President, Phillips Aviation Group, son of Marcus Phillips, CEO." The word swam before her eyes. Phillips Aviation. She knew that name. Everyone in Texas knew that name. Marcus Phillips was one of the richest men in the state. He owned airlines, airports, aircraft manufacturing companies. He was a billionaire several times over, and she had just slapped his son. "Oh, my God," Sarah whispered, the card falling from her fingers. Andrew picked it up calmly. "My father owns 42% of this airline," he said quietly. "He's on the board of directors." One phone call from him, and he gestured around at the stopped plane, the security vehicles, the chaos she had created. Sarah couldn't breathe. Her vision was starting to blur with tears. "I'm sorry," she choked out. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Everything had been so hard, and I wasn't thinking, and—" "Stop," Andrew said, holding up a hand. Sarah stopped, tears streaming down her face. Andrew studied her for a long moment. "Why did you do it?" he asked. "What did I say that made you so angry?" Sarah tried to remember through her panic. You called the seat dirty. You were being demanding. You! "I asked for a clean seat because I have a severe dust allergy," Andrew said quietly. "I wasn't being difficult. I was trying to avoid an allergic reaction on a 5-hour flight. He paused. I wasn't rude to you. I was direct, maybe, but never disrespectful. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. He was right. Looking back now with a clear head, he had never actually been rude. He had been calm, polite even. It was her who had exploded. Her who had been unprofessional. Her who had destroyed everything. The police are outside, Andrew said, his voice still quiet. They're waiting for my statement. If I tell them I want to press charges, you'll be arrested. You'll definitely lose your job. You might go to jail. Sarah buried her face in her hands, sobbing now. Everything was over. Everything she had worked for, gone in one moment of stupidity. But, Andrew continued, and Sarah looked up through her tears, I want to know why first. The real reason. Because people don't just hit other people for no reason. Sarah looked into his eyes and saw something unexpected there. Not anger, not cruelty, but genuine curiosity, maybe even concern. And despite everything, despite knowing her life was over, Sarah found herself telling him the truth. My mother is in the hospital, she said, her voice breaking. She has cancer. The treatments are so expensive, and I'm trying to pay for everything, but I can't keep up. I'm about to be evicted from my apartment. My manager yelled at me this morning for being late, and I couldn't take one more thing. One more person treating me like I don't matter. And I know that's not an excuse. I know I was wrong, but that's why. She waited for Andrew to call the police, to have her dragged off the plane in handcuffs. Instead, he pulled out his phone again. Sarah's heart sank even further. Here it comes, she thought, the call that would end everything. But when Andrew spoke into the phone, his words weren't what she expected at all. Dad, I need you to do something for me. Sarah sat frozen in her seat, unable to breathe as she listened to Andrew speak into his phone. Every word felt like it might be sealing her fate. Arrest, jail time, the end of everything she had worked so hard to build. Yes, I'm fine, Andrew said into the phone, his voice calm and steady. But I need you to handle something for me. There's a woman here, a flight attendant named Sarah Lewis. Her mother is being treated for cancer at... He paused and looked at Sarah. Which hospital? Sarah's mind went blank. Why was he asking? Was this part of building the case against her? Memorial General, she whispered. In Houston. Andrew repeated the information into the phone. I want you to contact the hospital billing department. Pay off whatever her mother owes. All of it. And make sure she gets the best oncologist in Texas. He paused, listening to whatever his father was saying. I don't care what it costs, Dad. Just do it. I'll explain later. Sarah's mouth fell open. She must have heard wrong. She must be hallucinating from stress and panic. And one more thing, Andrew continued. Find out where she lives and pay her rent for the next 12 months. Actually, make it 24 months. She needs stability. Another pause. Yes, I'm serious. And I need you to call the airline president. Tell them there's been a misunderstanding on Flight 447 and that no action should be taken against Ms. Lewis. Tell them I insisted. Sarah couldn't believe what she was hearing. Tears poured down her face, but now they weren't tears of fear. They were tears of complete shock and confusion. Andrew ended the call and looked at Sarah. Her face was a mess of tears and smeared makeup, her hands trembling in her lap. I don't understand, Sarah stammered. Why would you do this? I hit you. I assaulted you. I deserve to be arrested. Andrew touched his cheek, where the red mark was still visible. You do deserve consequences, he agreed. What you did was wrong. Illegal, even, but I watched you when you were greeting passengers earlier. I saw how tired you looked. How you were trying so hard to smile despite whatever was weighing on you. And just now, when I asked you why, you told me the truth. You didn't make excuses. You didn't blame me. You took responsibility. He leaned back in his seat, his expression thoughtful. My mother died of cancer when I was 16, he said softly. I watched my father work himself to the bone trying to pay for her treatments before his business took off. I know what that kind of stress does to a person. How it builds and builds until you feel like you're drowning. How one small thing can make you snap in ways you never thought possible. Sarah wiped her eyes, unable to speak. "I'm not excusing what you did," Andrew continued, "but I understand why you did it. And I believe people deserve second chances when they're truly sorry." He stood up and grabbed his carry-on bag from the overhead compartment. "The police are still outside. I'm going to tell them it was a misunderstanding, that I startled you and you reacted defensively, and that I don't want to press charges." But everyone saw," Sarah said. "The other passengers. They recorded it on their phones." Andrew gave a small smile. "My father owns 42% of this airline. The captain will make an announcement asking passengers to delete any videos out of respect for everyone's privacy. Most will comply. And even if they don't, without my statement, there's no case." He started walking toward the exit, then stopped and turned back. "Ms. Lewis, I have one condition." Sarah's heart sank. Here it was, the catch. "What is it?" "Get help," Andrew said simply. "Therapy, counseling, whatever you need. You're carrying too much weight on your shoulders, and it's breaking you. My assistant will reach out with information about some excellent therapists in Houston. Promise me you'll go." Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face again. "I promise. And Mr. Phillips, thank you. Thank you so much. I don't know how I can ever repay you." "You can repay me by taking care of yourself and your mother," Andrew said. Then he walked off the plane. Through the window, Sarah watched as Andrew spoke to the police officers and men in suits waiting on the jetway. She couldn't hear what he was saying, but she saw them nodding, saw the tension leave their postures. After a few minutes, they all walked away, and the jetway cleared. The captain came back on the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. We've resolved the situation and will be departing shortly. We ask that out of respect for everyone's privacy, please delete any photos or videos you may have taken during this flight. Thank you for your cooperation and your patience." Maria rushed over to Sarah, her eyes wide. "What just happened? What did he say to you?" Sarah shook her head, still in disbelief. He's not pressing charges. He's helping me. Maria, he's paying for my mother's treatment. He's paying my rent." Maria's jaw dropped. "What? Why would he do that?" "I don't know," Sarah whispered. "I don't understand any of this." The rest of the flight was a blur. Sarah went through the motions of her job in a daze, serving drinks and meals, checking on passengers. But her mind was elsewhere, trying to process everything that had happened. Every time she walked past seat 2A, which was now empty because Andrew had taken a later flight, she felt a wave of emotion. Shame for what she had done, gratitude for his mercy, confusion about why he had shown her such kindness. When they finally landed in New York, Sarah's phone was filled with missed calls and messages. One was from Memorial General Hospital in Houston. "Ms. Lewis, this is Janet from the billing department. We're calling to inform you that your mother's account has been paid in full by Phillips Aviation Group. Additionally, Dr. Richard Morrison, one of the top oncologists in the country, has agreed to take over your mother's care. Please call us back to schedule her first appointment with him." Sarah sat in the airport bathroom stall and cried. Not quiet tears, but deep, body-shaking sobs of relief and gratitude and disbelief. For months, no years, she had been carrying this crushing weight, this constant fear and stress about money and her mother's health and just surviving day to day. And in one afternoon, a man she had assaulted had lifted it all away. Why? The question haunted her. Why would anyone do this? Over the next few days, Sarah tried to focus on her mother and her job, but she couldn't stop thinking about Andrew Phillips. She looked him up online and discovered that he wasn't just the son of a billionaire living off his father's money. Andrew had graduated top of his class from MIT with a degree in aerospace engineering. He had multiple patents in aviation safety technology. He volunteered at youth centers in underprivileged neighborhoods in Dallas, teaching kids about science and technology. By all accounts, he was genuinely a good person, which made what Sarah had done even worse. She received a call from a woman named Dr. Patricia Green, one of the therapists Andrew's assistant had recommended. They set up weekly appointments. Sarah was skeptical at first, But Dr. Green was patient and kind. And slowly, Sarah began to open up about the stress, the anger, the feeling of being overwhelmed by life. "You've been in survival mode for so long," Dr. Green told her during their third session. "Your body and mind were running on empty. What happened on that plane was your breaking point. It doesn't make it right, but it makes it understandable." 2 weeks after the incident, Sarah's mother was transferred to Dr. Morrison's care. The difference was immediate and dramatic. Better medications, more targeted treatments, a whole team of specialists working together. For the first time in a year, Sarah's mother started to improve. Her pain decreased. Her appetite came back. She started smiling again. "I don't know how we got so lucky," her mother said one afternoon, holding Sarah's hand in her hospital room. "But I'm grateful, so grateful." Sarah squeezed her mother's hand, guilt gnawing at her. Her mother didn't know the real story. Sarah had told her that the airline had a special medical assistance program for employees. She couldn't bring herself to explain what had really happened, how she had hit a passenger, and that passenger had inexplicably saved them both. 1 month after the incident, Sarah received a package at her apartment. Inside was a handwritten note on expensive stationery. "Ms. Lewis, I hope you and your mother are doing well. My assistant tells me she's responding well to treatment, which makes me very happy to hear. I'm writing because I have a proposition for you. Phillips Aviation Group is launching a new initiative focused on employee mental health and wellness in the aviation industry. We want to create programs that help people like you, people who are struggling but don't have support systems in place. I'd like you to be part of this initiative, not as a token or a charity case, but because you have firsthand experience with what flight attendants go through. You understand the stress, the pressure, the breaking points. That perspective is invaluable. If you're interested, please contact my office. The position would pay significantly more than your current salary and would involve traveling to different airline hubs, meeting with employees, and helping us design better support systems. No pressure. If you prefer to continue with your current job, I understand completely, but I wanted to offer you the opportunity. Andrew Phillips." Sarah read the letter 3 times, her hands shaking. He was offering her a job, a real, meaningful job that would pay better and actually make a difference. But why? Was this pity? Guilt? Some kind of elaborate plan she didn't understand? She carried the letter with her for days, unable to decide. Finally, she called the number Andrew had included. His assistant answered and put her through immediately. "Ms. Lewis." Andrew's voice was warm. "I'm glad you called." "Mr. Phillips, I don't understand why you're doing this," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "The medical bills, the rent, and now this job offer. It's too much. I don't deserve any of it." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Can I tell you a story?" Andrew asked. "Okay," Sarah said hesitantly. "When I was 19, I was angry at the world," Andrew began. "My mother had just died, and I blamed everyone, the doctors, my father for working too much, God, everyone. One night, I got drunk at a party and got into a fight with someone. I was so out of control that I threw a bottle, and it hit a girl who was just walking by. Cut her face badly. She needed 12 stitches. Sarah listened, shocked. "I should have been arrested," Andrew continued. "I should have faced serious consequences. But the girl's father was a pastor, and instead of pressing charges, he came to see me in the hospital the next day. He told me that hurt people, and that I needed to heal before I could move forward. Then he and his daughter forgave me. Just like that." Andrew's voice grew quieter. "That forgiveness changed my life. It gave me a chance to become better, to channel my pain into something positive. So when I saw you on that plane, when you told me about your mother and everything you were going through, I saw myself at 19, and I remembered what that pastor did for me." Sarah felt tears welling up again. "I'm so sorry for what I did to you." "I know you are," Andrew said gently, "and I forgive you. The question is, can you forgive yourself? Can you let go of the guilt and use this second chance to do something meaningful?" Sarah thought about her mother, finally getting better. She thought about the therapy sessions that were helping her process years of buried stress and trauma. She thought about all the other flight attendants, All the other service workers out there who were struggling just like she had been, with no support and no way out. "Yes," she said finally. "Yes, I want to take the job. I want to help." "Good," Andrew said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "Come to Dallas next Monday. We'll get you set up." Sarah hung up the phone and looked around her apartment. The apartment she could now afford to keep, in a building where she no longer had to hide from a landlord. She thought about how close she had come to losing everything, how one terrible moment of anger had almost destroyed her life, and how one man's unexpected kindness had saved it. But as she packed for Dallas that weekend, Sarah had no idea that her story with Andrew Phillips was far from over. She didn't know about the enemies Andrew had made in the business world. People would stop at nothing to destroy him and anyone associated with him. She didn't know that taking this job would put her in danger. And she definitely didn't know that 3 months later, she would have to make a choice that would change both of their lives forever. As Sarah's plane touched down in Dallas that Monday morning, she looked out the window at the sprawling city below, excitement and nervousness mixing in her chest. A black car was waiting for her at the airport. The driver held a sign with her name and smiled warmly as he took her bag. "Mr. Phillips is waiting for you at the headquarters, Ms. Lewis. Welcome to Phillips Aviation Group." The headquarters building was stunning, a modern glass structure that seemed to touch the sky. Sarah felt small and out of place as she walked to the gleaming lobby in her simple dress and cardigan. Andrew met her in his office on the 40th floor. He looked professional in a dark suit, but his smile was genuine and warm. "Ms. Lewis, welcome. Thank you for coming." "Thank you for the opportunity," Sarah said, still feeling awkward and uncertain. They spent the morning discussing the new initiative. Andrew had already assembled a team, psychologists, HR specialists, and other aviation industry professionals. Sarah would work with them to develop support programs, confidential counseling services, and better working conditions for airline employees. "You'll be traveling a lot," Andrew explained, "visiting different airline hubs, talking to flight attendants and ground crew, finding out what they really need. Your voice will be crucial because you've lived it." Sarah nodded, feeling more confident. This was real. This was important work. Over the next few weeks, Sarah threw herself into the job. She visited airports in Houston, Los Angeles, Chicago, and Atlanta. She sat in crew break rooms and listened to stories that were heartbreakingly similar to her own. Single parents struggling to pay bills, people dealing with medical emergencies, workers facing harassment from passengers with no support from management. She compiled reports, made recommendations, and watched as Andrew and his team actually implemented them. Confidential counseling hotlines were established. Emergency financial assistance programs were created. Better protocols for dealing with aggressive passengers were put in place. Sarah felt like she was finally making a difference, like her terrible mistake on that plane had somehow led to something good. But then the threat started. It began with an anonymous email to the company's general inbox. "Tell Andrew Phillips to watch his back. His bleeding heart is going to cost him everything." Then Sarah's rental car was vandalized at the Atlanta airport. All 4 tires slashed, the word "stop" spray painted across the hood. Andrew insisted on assigning her security detail, which made Sarah uncomfortable, but he was firm. "There are people in this industry who don't want things to change," he explained. "They profit from keeping workers desperate and powerless. What we're doing threatens that." "Then maybe we should slow down," Sarah suggested, worried. "No," Andrew said firmly. "We keep going. We don't let bullies win." But the threats escalated. Someone broke into Sarah's apartment in Houston while she was in Dallas. Nothing was stolen, but papers were scattered everywhere, and a note was left on her kitchen table. "You should have stayed a flight attendant." Sarah called Andrew immediately, her hands shaking as she stood in her violated home. "Pack a bag," Andrew said without hesitation. "You're staying at my property in Dallas until we figure out who's behind this. I'm not taking any chances with your safety." "Andrew, I can't just—" "Sarah," he interrupted, and she realized it was the first time he had called her by her first name. "Please, let me keep you safe. After everything that's happened, I need to know you're okay." There was something in his voice that made Sarah pause. Something beyond professional concern. She packed her bag and drove to the address he sent her, expecting maybe a condo or an apartment. Instead, she arrived at a massive estate on the outskirts of Dallas, with sprawling grounds and a house that looked like something out of a magazine. Andrew met her at the door personally. "Welcome," he said. "The guest house is ready for you. It has everything you need: kitchen, bedroom, office space. You'll have complete privacy, but there's security throughout the property." As he showed her around, Sarah couldn't help but notice how different he seemed here, in his personal space. More relaxed, more himself. He had traded his suit for jeans and a casual shirt. He seemed younger, less like a billionaire executive, and more like a regular person. "I need to ask you something," Sarah said as they stood in the beautiful guest house that was bigger than her entire apartment. "Why are you doing all this? The job, the protection, everything. I know what you said about the pastor and forgiveness, but this goes beyond that. You barely know me." Andrew was quiet for a moment, looking out the window at the sunset, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "You're right," he said finally. "There's more to it." He turned to face her, and Sarah saw something vulnerable in his expression. "The truth is, when you hit me on that plane, something strange happened. I wasn't angry. I was curious, because I saw something in your eyes. Pain, yes, and anger, but also strength. The strength of someone who's been fighting every single day just to survive, just to take care of someone they love." He took a step closer. "And then when you told me about your mother, when you took responsibility for what you'd done without making excuses, I saw someone I wanted to know better. Someone real in a world of fake people. Someone worth fighting for." Sarah's heart was pounding. "Andrew, I'm not saying this to make you uncomfortable," Andrew said quickly. "I know the power dynamic is complicated. You work for me now, and I would never pressure you or expect anything. But I want to be honest about why I've been so invested in your well-being. It's not just guilt or charity. It's because I genuinely care about you." Before Sarah could respond, Andrew's phone rang. He glanced at it, and his expression darkened. "It's my head of security. I need to take this." He stepped away, and Sarah could hear his side of the conversation, his voice growing more concerned. When he hung up, his face was pale. "What is it?" Sarah asked. "They've identified who's behind the threats," Andrew said. "It's Marcus Thornton, the CEO of Velocity Airlines. He's one of my father's biggest rivals, and he's furious about our new employee wellness initiatives. He thinks if they succeed, he'll be forced to implement similar programs at his airline, which will cost him millions." "What do we do?" Sarah asked. Andrew's jaw tightened. "We don't back down. We keep pushing forward." "But Sarah, this means things are going to get more dangerous. Thornton doesn't play fair. If you want out, if you want to go back to your old job and walk away from all this, I'll understand." Sarah thought about her mother, healthy and smiling for the first time in years. She thought about all the flight attendants she'd met, the ones still struggling, still breaking under pressure with no one to help them. She thought about Andrew, who had shown her a kindness she never expected, and was now asking her to stand with him against someone powerful and dangerous. "I'm not going anywhere," Sarah said firmly. "We finished what we started." Andrew smiled, relief flooding his face. "Thank you." But neither of them knew that at that very moment, Marcus Thornton was putting into motion a plan that would threaten everything they'd built, and force Sarah to make an impossible choice between her own safety and the man who had saved her life. 3 weeks had passed since Sarah moved into Andrew's guest house, and the threats had only gotten worse. Someone had sent photos to Sarah's phone, pictures of her mother at the hospital, with captions like, "She looks peaceful. Would be a shame if something happened." Sarah had nearly thrown up when she saw them. Andrew immediately increased security at Memorial General, with guards stationed outside her mother's room 24 hours a day. But the most disturbing incident happened on a Tuesday morning. Sarah was working in her office at Phillips Aviation headquarters when Andrew's assistant, Jennifer, rushed in, her face white as a sheet. "Sarah, you need to come to Mr. Phillips's office right now." Sarah's stomach dropped. "What happened?" "Just come, please." Sarah practically ran down the hallway. When she entered Andrew's office, she found him standing at his desk, staring at something. His father, Marcus Phillips Sr., was there too, a tall, imposing man in his 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had only met him once before, briefly. "What's going on?" Sarah asked. Andrew turned to her, his face grim. He held up a manila envelope. "This was delivered to the front desk 30 minutes ago. It's addressed to both of us." Sarah's hands trembled as Andrew opened the envelope and pulled out several photographs. Her breath caught in her throat. They were pictures of her and Andrew having coffee at a cafe near the office, walking through the headquarters lobby, talking in the garden at his estate. Someone had been following them, watching them, documenting their every interaction. But there was a note attached that made Sarah's blood run cold. How sweet. The flight attendant who assaults passengers is now sleeping with the boss. I wonder what the media would think about this story, or the board of directors. Drop the wellness initiative, or these photos go public along with a very interesting version of events. You have 48 hours. It was signed simply, MT, Marcus Thornton. "This is blackmail," Sarah whispered. "Yes," Marcus Phillips Sr. said, his voice hard, "and it's actionable. We can go to the authorities." "No," Andrew said immediately. "If we do that, the story still gets out. The photos will leak. They'll twist everything to make it look like Sarah only got her job because of some inappropriate relationship. They'll bring up the incident on the plane and make her look like a gold digger who manipulated her way into my life." Sarah felt sick. "This is my fault. If I had never hit you, if I had just controlled my temper." "Stop," Andrew said firmly. He walked over to her and placed his hands on her shoulders, looking directly into her eyes. "This is not your fault. Thornton is a bully who's trying to protect his profits. He doesn't care who he destroys in the process. But the photos..." Sarah's voice cracked. "People will think." "Let them think whatever they want," Andrew said. "We know the truth. We know our relationship is professional. We know the wellness initiative is legitimate and important." "Andrew," his father interrupted, his voice serious. "You need to think about this carefully. If these photos go public, it could damage the company. The board is already nervous about the money you're spending on this initiative. If they think you're letting personal feelings cloud your judgment." "I'm not," Andrew said sharply. "Every decision I've made has been based on what's right for our employees and for the industry." "I believe you," Marcus Sr. said, "but perception matters in business. Thornton knows that. He's trying to back you into a corner." Sarah pulled away from Andrew, her mind racing. "Maybe I should just resign. If I'm not working for the company anymore, then the photos don't matter as much. You can continue the initiative without me." "No," Andrew said immediately. "That's exactly what he wants. He wants to silence you, to make you disappear. Because your voice is the most powerful part of this whole program. You're the one the other flight attendants trust. You're the one who's making a real difference." "But I'm also the one putting you and your company at risk," Sarah said, tears welling in her eyes. "I can't let you lose everything because of me." Andrew's father watched them both carefully, his expression unreadable. Finally he spoke. "Sarah, can I ask you something?" Sarah nodded, wiping her eyes. "Why did you really take this job?" Marcus Sr. asked. "Was it gratitude, guilt, or did you actually believe in what we're trying to do?" Sarah didn't hesitate. "I believe in it. I've met dozens of flight attendants and ground crew members over the past few weeks. I've heard their stories. People working 2 or 3 jobs just to survive. People dealing with harassment and abuse with no support. People breaking down just like I did. This initiative could change lives. It could prevent other people from reaching the breaking point I reached." Marcus Sr. nodded slowly. Then he turned to his son. "And you, Andrew? Why are you so committed to this? Be honest." Andrew was quiet for a moment. "Because Mom deserved better," he said quietly. "She worked herself to death trying to keep us afloat before the business took off. The stress, the pressure. It killed her just as much as a cancer did. I don't want other families to go through what we went through." He looked at Sarah. And yes, I care about Sarah. I won't apologize for that. But that doesn't change the fact that this initiative is necessary and right. Marcus Sr. studied his son for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, then we don't back down. We call Thornton's bluff. Dad, Andrew started. I didn't build this company by letting bullies push me around. Marcus Sr. said firmly, if Thornton releases those photos, we'll tell the truth. We'll explain exactly what happened on that plane and how you chose to show mercy instead of destroying a young woman's life. We'll show how that decision led to an important initiative that's already helping hundreds of employees. We'll make Sarah a hero, not a villain. But the company, Sarah protested, will survive. Marcus Sr. finished. We've weathered worse storms. And you know what? I think most people will respect what Andrew did, what you both are doing now. The only people who won't are people like Thornton, people who care more about profits than human lives. Sarah looked between the two men, hardly daring to hope. You really think we can win this? I think we have to try, Andrew said. He picked up his phone. I'm calling Thornton right now. I'm telling him to do his worst. We're not stopping the initiative. Wait, Sarah said suddenly. An idea was forming in her mind. What if we beat him to it? What if we tell the story ourselves, on our terms, before he can twist it? Andrew paused, considering. You mean go public? Hold a press conference? Yes, Sarah said, her confidence growing. We control the narrative. We tell the truth about what happened on that plane, about the wellness initiative, about why it matters. We don't hide or apologize. We own it. Marcus Sr. smiled. I like the way you think, Sarah. That's exactly what we should do. But Sarah, Andrew said carefully, that means everyone will know what happened. Your mother, your friends, everyone you know. Are you ready for that? Sarah thought about her mother, healthy and smiling. She thought about all the flight attendants she'd met who were struggling. She thought about the difference they could make if they just held their ground. Yes, she said firmly. I'm ready. Andrew nodded. Then let's do it. We'll schedule a press conference for tomorrow morning. We tell everything. The next 24 hours were a whirlwind. Andrew's PR team worked overnight preparing statements. Sarah practiced her part of the story, her hand shaking every time she rehearsed a moment where she admitted to hitting Andrew. The morning of the press conference, Sarah stood backstage in a conference room at Phillips Aviation headquarters. Through the curtain, she could see dozens of reporters, cameras, and microphones. Her heart hammered in her chest. Andrew appeared beside her, looking calm and professional in his suit. You ready? No, Sarah admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. He smiled. That's courage. Real courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right despite the fear. They walked out together. The camera flashes were blinding. Sarah's legs felt like jelly as she sat down at the table next to Andrew, with his father on his other side. Andrew spoke first, his voice clear and strong. Thank you all for coming. We've called this press conference to address some rumors that have been circulating and to tell you the truth about an incident that occurred 6 weeks ago on Flight 447 from Dallas to New York. The room went completely silent. Every reporter leaned forward. I was assaulted on that flight by a flight attendant named Sarah Lewis, Andrew continued, gesturing to Sarah beside him. She struck me in the face. It was wrong. It was assault. And under normal circumstances, she would have been arrested and prosecuted. Sarah could hear the reporters typing frantically, could see some of them already reaching for their phones to send out breaking news alerts. But I made a choice, Andrew continued. I chose not to press charges. And I want to explain why. As Andrew told the story, Sarah's struggles, her mother's illness, the moment of breaking, and his decision to help instead of punish. Sarah watched the reporters' faces. Some looked skeptical. Others looked moved. All of them were completely absorbed. Then it was Sarah's turn. Her voice shook at first, but grew stronger as she spoke. I take full responsibility for what I did. There's no excuse for violence, no matter how stressed or desperate you are. I was wrong, and I'm deeply sorry. She paused, gathering her courage. But Mr. Phillips's mercy gave me a second chance. And I want to use that chance to help other people who are struggling the way I was. That's why I'm working on the Employee Wellness Initiative. That's why we're here today." She looked directly into the cameras. There are thousands of flight attendants, ground crew members, and other aviation workers out there right now who are one bad day away from breaking like I did. They're carrying crushing stress with no support. They're being harassed by passengers with no protection. They're working impossible hours for insufficient pay. And nobody cares until something goes wrong. Her voice grew passionate. The Wellness Initiative is about changing that. It's about creating real support systems, real protections, real change. And some people in this industry don't want that to happen because it might cost them money. They're trying to stop us by threatening us, blackmailing us, try to destroy our reputations. Sarah pulled out the photos and the threatening note, holding them up for the cameras. This is what we received yesterday from Marcus Thornton, CEO of Velocity Airlines. He's trying to blackmail us into abandoning the Wellness Initiative. He wants you to think I'm some kind of gold digger who seduced Mr. Phillips to get ahead. But the truth is, I'm just a former flight attendant who made a terrible mistake and was shown extraordinary mercy, and who now wants to pay that forward by helping others. The room erupted with questions, reporters shouting over each other. But Andrew held up his hand. "We're not backing down," he said firmly. "The Wellness Initiative continues. And we invite Mr. Thornton to join us in making this industry better for everyone, or to explain publicly why he thinks employees don't deserve support and protection." As they walked off the stage, Sarah felt strangely light, despite the chaos they had just unleashed. They had done it. They had told the truth. Her phone buzzed. It was her mother. "Sarah, I just saw the news." "Honey, why didn't you tell me?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't want you to worry." "I'm not worried," her mother said, and Sarah could hear the pride in her voice. "I'm proud of you. So incredibly proud." But as Sarah hung up the phone, Andrews head of security rushed over, his face grave. "We have a problem," he said. "Marcus Thornton just checked out of his hotel in Dallas. His private jet filed a flight plan to the Cayman Islands. And according to our sources, he's planning something big, something that could destroy everything you just built." Andrew's expression hardened. "What kind of something?" The security chief handed him a tablet showing financial records. "He's been embezzling money from Velocity Airlines for years. Millions of dollars. And he's about to pin on you, sir. He's created fake transactions that make it look like Phillips Aviation has been involved. If he gets away, you'll be left holding the bag. You could go to prison." Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her feet. They had won the press conference, told their truth, and now Thornton was about to destroy them anyway. "How much time do we have?" Andrew asked, his voice deadly calm. "His plane takes off in 2 hours." Andrew looked at Sarah, and she saw something dangerous flash in his eyes, something determined. "Then we have 2 hours to stop him." Andrew grabbed his phone and started making calls, his voice sharp and commanding. "I need the FBI Financial Crimes Unit on the line. Now. And get our lawyers to the office immediately." Sarah stood frozen, her mind racing. 2 hours. They had 2 hours to stop a man who had been planning this for months, maybe years. "What can I do?" she asked Andrew. He looked at her, his expression intense. "You've done enough, Sarah. This part is dangerous. Thornton is desperate, and desperate men do terrible things. I need you to stay here where you're safe." "No," Sarah said firmly. "You gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve it. You stood by me when you could have destroyed me. I'm not abandoning you now." Andrew's father stepped forward. "She's right. Son, you're going to need all the help you can get. And besides," he looked at Sarah with respect, "she's proven she's not someone who runs when things get hard." Andrew hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, but you stay close to me, no matter what happens." They rushed Andrew's car, his security team following in 2 other vehicles. As they sped toward the private airport where Thornton's jet was waiting, Andrew explained the situation. Thornton has been stealing from Velocity Airlines for 3 years. Small amounts at first, then larger and larger sums. He created fake consulting contracts, phantom employees, bogus maintenance expenses. The money went to offshore accounts. How did he plan to blame you? Sarah asked. He created fake email accounts that look like they're from Phillips Aviation employees. Fake invoices, fake communications. If he gets away and releases this evidence, it will look like we were his partners in the theft. By the time we prove it's all fabricated, the damage will be done. Our company will be under investigation. Our stock will crash. Everything my father built will be destroyed. Sarah felt sick, all because we tried to help people. All because we threatened his power, Andrew corrected. Men like Thornton care about one thing: control. When they lose it, they'll burn everything down rather than admit defeat. They arrived at the private airport with 45 minutes to spare. Thornton's jet sat on the tarmac, its engines already warming up. Sarah could see movement inside the plane through the windows. The FBI is on their way, Andrew's father said, checking his phone. But they're 20 minutes out. If that plane takes off before they get here. It won't, Andrew said. He turned to his head of security. Can you delay the takeoff? The security chief nodded. I have contacts at the tower. I can tell them there's a maintenance issue that needs to be checked before departure. That'll buy us maybe 15 minutes. Do it, Andrew ordered. As the security chief made the call, Sarah watched the plane. She could see someone moving near the door, a tall man in an expensive suit, Marcus Thornton. Even from this distance, she could sense his arrogance, his certainty that he would escape. Something inside Sarah snapped. Not in anger this time, but in determination. This man had threatened her mother, had attempted to blackmail her into abandoning an initiative that could help thousands of people, and he was about to get away with it. I'm going to talk to him, Sarah announced. What? Andrew spun to face her. Absolutely not. Sarah, that's... The only chance we have, Sarah interrupted. The FBI won't get here in time. Your security chief can only delay the plane so long. But if I can get on that plane and keep Thornton talking, maybe we can stall long enough. It's too dangerous, Andrew said. You saw what he's capable of. The threats, the blackmail. I'm not afraid of him anymore, Sarah said, and she realized it was true. I've already lost everything once and survived. I've faced my worst moment and come out the other side. What can he possibly do to me that's worse than what I've already been through? Andrew's father placed a hand on his son's shoulder. Let her go, Andrew. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is trust someone else to fight alongside us. Andrew looked at Sarah for a long moment, conflict clear in his eyes. Finally, he nodded. Okay, but you were a wire. Everything he says gets recorded. And if anything feels wrong, you get out immediately. 5 minutes later, Sarah was walking across the tarmac toward Thornton's plane, a tiny microphone hidden under her blouse. Her heart pounded with every step, but she kept her head high. A security guard at the plane stairs tried to stop her. This is a private flight, ma'am. You can't. Tell Mr. Thornton that Sarah Lewis wants to talk to him, Sarah said loudly, knowing the man himself could probably hear. Tell him I have a deal for him. There was a pause. Then Marcus Thornton appeared at the top of the stairs. He was in his late 50s, with silver hair and cold blue eyes that assessed Sarah like she was an insect. Ms. Lewis, he said, his voice smooth. How unexpected. And what deal could you possibly offer me? Sarah climbed the stairs, forcing herself to maintain eye contact. I'll resign from Phillips Aviation. I'll make a public statement saying the wellness initiative was my idea, that I pressured Andrew into it, and that I was wrong. I'll take all the blame. Thornton's eyebrows rose. In exchange for what? You delete the fake evidence. You leave Andrew and his family alone. You disappear to wherever you're planning to disappear to, but you leave them out of it. Thornton studied her for a moment, then laughed, a cold, cruel sound. You really think I'd believe you do that? After your touching press conference this morning. I would do anything to protect the people who helped me, Sarah said. Just like you'd do anything to protect yourself. We're not so different, Mr. Thornton. Oh, we're very different, Thornton said. I'm a winner. You're a loser who got lucky, and your luck just ran out. He gestured inside the plane. Come aboard. Let's talk about this deal. Sarah hesitated. Andrew's voice crackled in her hidden earpiece. Sarah, don't. The FBI is 10 minutes out. Just keep him talking from where you are. But Sarah saw something in Thornton's eyes, a desperation beneath the arrogance. He was more scared than he was letting on, and scared people made mistakes. She stepped into the plane. The interior was luxurious, all leather and polished wood. Thornton sat down in one of the large chairs and gestured for Sarah to sit across from him. "You want to know why I really hate your little wellness initiative?" Thornton asked. "It's not just the money, though that's part of it. It's what it represents. The idea that employees should be treated like human beings instead of replaceable parts. The idea that their mental health matters. Their struggles matter." He leaned forward, his eyes cold. "That kind of thinking destroys industries, Ms. Lewis. It makes people weak, entitled. Your generation thinks everyone deserves help, deserves support, and deserves a safety net. But the real world doesn't work that way. The real world rewards strength and punishes weakness. Is that what you tell yourself?" Sarah asked quietly. "That stealing millions of dollars and threatening innocent people is strength?" Thornton's face darkened. "I built Velocity Airlines from nothing. I earned every penny." "No," Sarah said, her voice gaining strength. "You stole it. From your employees, from your shareholders, from everyone who trusted you. And now you're running away like a coward." Thornton stood abruptly, his hand moving inside his jacket. Sarah's blood froze as she realized he might be reaching for a weapon. But before he could pull out whatever he was reaching for, the plane's door burst open. FBI agents swarmed in, weapons drawn, shouting commands. "Marcus Thornton, you're under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, and attempted extortion." Thornton's face went white as agents grabbed him, forcing his hands behind his back. The item he'd been reaching for, a passport, not a weapon, fell to the floor. Sarah stood on shaking legs as Andrew rushed onto plane, his face pale with worry. "Sarah, are you okay?" She nodded, unable to speak. The adrenaline was draining from her body, leaving her trembling and weak. Andrew pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "That was the bravest and stupidest thing I've ever seen anyone do. Did we get what we needed?" Sarah asked against his shoulder. "Everything," Andrew confirmed. Every word he said was recorded. He confessed to everything. "It's over, Sarah. We won." As the FBI led Thornton away in handcuffs, Sarah watched him go. He looked smaller now, defeated, nothing like the powerful man who had terrorized them. 3 months later, Sarah stood in the same conference room where they had held the press conference. But this time, the atmosphere was celebratory. The Employee Wellness Initiative had been fully implemented across Phillips Aviation and 2 other major airlines. Hundreds of employees had already used the counseling services. Several had been helped through financial crises. And most importantly, the industry was starting to change. Andrew stood beside her as they watched the celebration. His hand found hers, their fingers intertwining naturally. "I've been thinking," Andrew said quietly, "about second chances and new beginnings." Sarah looked up at him. Over the past months, their relationship had deepened beyond professional respect into something neither of them had expected. Genuine love. It had grown slowly, carefully, built on trust and shared purpose. "What about them?" Sarah asked. "I think everyone deserves one," Andrew said. "Even me?" He turned to face her fully. "Sarah Lewis, I know we started in the most impossible way. I know there will always be people who question us, who think they know our story. But I also know that I love you. And I think I have since that moment on the plane when you looked at me with such honest regret and pain." Sarah felt tears welling up. "Andrew, I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give," Andrew continued. "I just wanted you to know. You changed my life, Sarah. You made me believe that broken things can be fixed, that mistakes can lead to miracles, that sometimes the worst moments are really the beginning of the best ones." Sarah smiled through her tears. "You changed my life, too. You showed me that mercy is more powerful than judgment, that kindness is stronger than cruelty, and that second chances are real." She stood on her toes and kissed him, there in front of everyone celebrated around them. When they pulled apart, Andrew was smiling. "So what happens now?" Sarah looked around the room at all the people they'd helped, at the program they'd built together. at the future they were creating. Now, she said, we keep flying. Together. And they did.